Welcome back, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, depending on where you are. This morning, I was on Twitter, now called X, on a Spaces call. So I thought I'd just recap what was said there because I think it's really important for us all to better understand, myself included. So what's really spurred this is more reading on AI and just really coming to appreciate how difficult it is for us to actually understand the rate of change that is occurring within the space of artificial intelligence. In fact, researchers working in the area of AI are having trouble even predicting where the technology will be 6 months from now, let alone a year or 2 years from now. So, as an outsider, it's even more difficult to understand what's going on. So I want to walk you through a little bit of what I'm starting to understand myself and maybe simplify it a little bit and sort of try to bring home some of the key points because I think they're really important, especially to us as investors, but really for everybody to understand. With that in mind, maybe let me just tell you a couple of the analogies I mentioned on the Spaces call. So the first that I find mind-blowing is that a researcher was saying that, look, if we can get AI to the point where it is equivalent to the average researcher or team of researchers, let's say, at an MIT or Stanford, which sounds hard, but then again, when you look at what AI is doing already, when you ask it questions about law or chemistry, I mean, it already is very impressive with its abilities in mathematical. We've seen it beat Go, for example, the Go champion, the human Go champion. So it's not that big of a stretch that it could be as competent as a group of scientists working in a research capacity. So what he was saying is, at that point, essentially what you have is you have supercomputing power behind the AI, and you have biological or biochemical processing behind the humans. And the thing about that that's so important to realize is that electric circuits function 1,000,000 times faster than biochemical ones. And so, we have unlimited processing power essentially with all these new supercomputers coming online and increasing 1,000 petaflops of data processing capability now with these supercomputers. So putting that together, what that means, he said, is that if those researchers were to work for a week on developing new technology, and the AI was also to work on developing new technology, for example, over that same week, and again, with keeping in mind that the electric circuits function 1,000,000 times faster, well, the end result is that the AI generates about 20,000 years worth of human progress in 1 week. Just let that sink in for a minute. 20,000 years of human progress per week. So you have to ask yourself, how far are we from that? How reasonable are the assumptions made? We don't know exactly, but we do know that electric circuits function 1,000,000 times faster than biochemical ones. So, even if that is 1/100th right? There's a huge amount of progress about to be made by AI at the request of humans, right? But also, of course, all these AI discussions, they inevitably all lead to the safety of AI. And, is this prudent what we're doing, what we're unleashing here? We could end up being the ants to the humans, right? Right now we're the humans and we're not the ants, but the AI could ultimately end up being the human. And it may not have nefarious intent towards us, but by the same token, it may not care much for us either because we're so puny in our intellectual capacity compared to them, or compared to AI broadly. So, just a ton of new information that I'm trying to process and trying to really put into practice as well in an investing capacity. So I was trying to figure out, okay, so where can we get good exposure to this progress being made in AI? And it's difficult, right? Because, there's a lot of sort of seemingly good AI plays like the Palantirs of the world or C3.ai, for example, but they aren't really that central to this AI development. They're using AI and they're employing it, but they're not the ones that are advancing it. And, it's even questionable, how much C3.ai is really truly an AI play, and yet it's run up, extensively, as is Palantir and so on the hype. And don't get me wrong, I'm saying the hype is real, but the difficulty is where and how do we find a suitable way to really expose ourselves to that hype so that we're actually obtaining the benefit of it when it does come. So it's a conundrum that I'm working through myself, trying to figure out, where is the best use of my capital from an investment point of view to benefit from these trends. I mentioned on the call that I like Enovix, and you've seen me mention Enovix here on the channel a number of times. And today it's actually up 6% or so that's nice. But yeah, that's one way I see to play AI. But again, it's very indirect, right? It's edge computing, it's powering edge computing. And the issue there is that, if you look at something like Apple's Vision Pro that just came out, the constraint for it is the battery life, right? I mean, these applications are so demanding between the processing that needs to happen, the visualizations that they're displaying, and so battery life is ultimately the constraint. These things don't work for days at a time, they work for hours at a time. And so Enovix is, I think, a very interesting opportunity and way to play this, but again, it's not direct, right? This is not obtaining direct exposure to these exponential growth curves in the processing and logic capabilities of AI. And also of note, the researchers, many of them that I listen to are sort of saying, hey, look, the problem with all this AI for us as humans is we don't think very well in exponential terms. And really what's going on with this stuff is it's both exponential, but almost a double exponential curve in some cases, which is even harder for us to understand what the implications of that are. So again, I want to really make sure that my investment portfolio is finding ways to be exposed to that sort of progress. And I think arguably, technology in the right areas is actually cheaper than value in many cases. And I know value's been really popular lately because, we've had a bit of a backing off of the dovish pivot and more reversion to those value names, right? I mean, shipping companies, for example, have been on a real tear lately and whatnot. So, but I just don't think that's where the opportunity lies, right? I think the opportunity is very clearly in technology and the derivatives of all this AI that's being developed. So lastly, I'll just leave it at this. Just one more analogy that I think just kind of helps put this in perspective as well. There's a tool called GNoME, I believe, an AI tool powered by DeepMind, Google's DeepMind. And it came out, I think a month ago now, that particular AI tool has discovered 2.2 million new crystal structures through its work, the processing and churning that it's been doing. And of those 2.2 million new crystal structures, there are 380,000 stable materials that could power future technologies or future materials that have come out of that. So right there, one particular AI working in a very narrow space has developed 380,000 stable materials that again could power future technologies. Like, who has the time to look into 380,000 different things? I mean, this is where AI comes in again, right? Now AI starts looking at those and applying it to other things and develop, like, it's just a snowball effect essentially. And the numbers are just so big and so huge that we don't have enough intelligent, productive, researching people on Earth to even begin to compete with the level of progress that AI is making on our behalf. So it's kind of mind-blowing. It's hard to wrap your head around. And for me, it's just, how do we find opportunities to play this? I mean, ideally, you're playing it with a nice margin of safety. That's hard in technology because a lot of these companies aren't value companies and don't have value attributes. But for me, Enovix, the risk reward is very, very good. Well, obviously, there's lots of execution risk if you follow that company. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of recap what I talked about this morning because I think it's important to understand. And hopefully you guys can contribute and help me understand where the opportunities are. So I'd love to hear some comments of things that you guys like. I know one of the guys on the call mentioned Symbiotic, and I'm actually not particularly familiar with that, so I'm going to definitely spend some time on Symbiotic now. It looks interesting to me. Again, certainly not cheap, it's run up a lot, but again, these exponential curves, if you're really involved and really able to apply AI in a way that benefits your bottom line, then there's an awful lot of upside. So okay, well, thanks everyone, and until next time.